Now, can you multitask at work, juggling everything from watering plants to sorting out spa days and even dreaming up marketing campaigns to promote your boss's global brand? Well, if you can do all of that, you could be the perfect PA for the Premiership footballer Jermaine Defoe. The former England star is advertising online for an executive assistant to look after him and his family. You'll have to be prepared to be on call 24/7. You'll look after 5 family members, including Jermaine, plus the family pets, but you will earn a pay packet of up to 60 grand a year. Well, with me in the studio is Leeanne Graham, Executive PA Magazine's PA of the Year in 2013 and an expert in catering to the whims of her high-rolling clients. Thank you for coming in.
Morning.
Well, you've got a good pedigree. What do you make of the list that he's putting out there? I mean, it goes from watering plants to developing his global brand. It's quite a tall order, isn't it?
It does start as a very standard job description, the things that you'd expect to run the office. It then kind of dives into a lot more personal aspects, looking after his family, developing the global brand. They aren't necessarily things that I would expect to do for my boss. I think when you're working for a very ultra high net worth or a very high profile celebrity, then it does kind of go into a grey area of what they expect you to do and what you're willing to do for them as well.
On call 24/7, is that normal?
Pretty much for some people, yes. If you are working for someone who's international, whose job takes them across several time zones, then you have to be willing to be able to keep up with them. And if that means 24/7, then it means 24/7. But you should know that before you go into the role.
So what sort of things have you been called upon to do?
My least favourite task was when my boss said to me, wash your hands and come into my office, in front of an open plan office.
What was that about?
He wanted me to put some eye drops in for him.
And at what point did you find out that that was what you were going to end up doing?
After I washed my hands and walked into the
You were
office.
nervously washing them, thinking, what lies ahead?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't my best day.
What else?
This particular boss was probably my most fun boss for things like this, and he had to do a radio interview, and he asked me to look after his dog. So I went and met him with his dog, and I had to sit in a park for half an hour whilst it rained. Unfortunately, the dog really, really loved his boss or his master and spent the whole time sitting on my lap crying while I sat in the rain overlooking Westminster and the Thames.
That doesn't sound like fun. I mean, are the bosses very grateful? Do they at least appreciate everything that's being done?
Mostly they do. I don't think everybody realises the scope of what a PA does for them. So they just see you do the day-to-day things. They see you do the diary management and manage their lives, and they don't always realise that what they're asking perhaps is not the most appropriate thing for you to be doing, not necessarily the best use of your time.
And is the role of a PA changing? Because when you look at the list and it says things like develop a global brand, is that something that you would ever expect to be on your to-do list for somebody? It's a very specialised thing, isn't it?
It is a very specialised thing, but a personal assistant, an executive assistant, should be somebody who is pushing their boss, their CEO, their executive to the maximum potential that they have. So although you wouldn't necessarily see it listed as develop a global brand, actually what you should be doing in your day-to-day job is pushing them and ensuring that they are giving the best face of themselves. So by their reputation is your reputation, and if their reputation is going down, then that's probably something that you might be able to help them with. You should be in a situation where you can say to them, maybe this one isn't for you.
So what's the going rate?
It really depends. It absolutely
But
depends.
Premiership footballers have got very deep pockets. Does 60 grand sound about right? Someone on call 24/7?
Well, as well as that money, you're also putting on your CV his name and the fact that he is a very well-known person. So if you can have on your CV, I worked for so-and-so, who is very, very well-known, then sometimes that outweighs the money. 60 grand to look after Jermaine Defoe's family, animals, arrange his holidays and everything else he's asking on the job spec, I think possibly is a little low. You might want to go a bit higher.
I think he earns 70,000 a week.
Yeah. So certainly he can afford more. I'm not quite sure who advised him on the job description or who advised him to place it where he placed it. There are better agencies to find him the right person for that role.
And how do you feel when you're in the role of a PA? Do you feel like someone's friend, or do you feel like they're lackey? Or a bit of both?
A bit of both. I think it's so essential that you can build a fantastic relationship with your boss. If you can't, it doesn't matter how organised you are, how much you can run their lives. If you can't relate to them, if you can't have a good working relationship, it's never going to work. There are times when you feel like, gosh, there I am making the coffee again, I'm sure I could be doing something else, but it all rolls into the one big role of being the PA, being the assistant and being there for them. Sometimes they just need a cup of tea.
Where do you draw the line? Have you ever actually turned around? I mean, you were saying about when you were asked to wash your hands and you didn't know what that was for. At what point when you're working for someone do you say, actually, why? I don't feel like I feel comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I knew my boss. I knew he wasn't going to be asking me to do something. Well, I didn't expect that, but I knew it wasn't going to be something that was really going to push my boundaries. I think when you're looking at PAs who have been asked to do things that are potentially illegal for their bosses, you have to make a moral judgment. You have to say, is this crossing my moral boundaries?
In terms of being a PA for somebody like Jermaine Defoe or any other celebrity, it gives you an entree into a world that otherwise you wouldn't get.
Yeah.
And there must be a huge amount of trust actually on both sides.
Absolutely. Confidentiality is a massive, massive thing. I think when you look at the name and you realise that you're going to be working for someone so high profile, there is a level of expectation. I mean, that's an incredibly detailed job description, the things that he wants the person to do. He's been quite honest and open. So you couldn't really go into that with your eyes closed and say, well, I don't want to do these things. He's saying, you're going to be managing these aspects of my life. And if you're not happy with that, then you don't have to apply for it, really.